Opinions expressed by talk show hosts or callers on KWRO do not necessarily represent the opinions of the staff and management of Bicoastal Media LLC, its sponsors, subsidiaries, or possibly anyone else on the planet. From high atop the historical hall building in beautiful downtown Coos Bay, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your weekly political therapy session is about to begin. And ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
Hello, Coos County and Coos Bay. If you're joining me, then you must know that it's raining outside once again. But isn't that the wonderful thing about Oregon? If you want to know the forecast, it's rain. Most of the time rain, but that's how we get all that beautiful trees and greenery out there. It's something that we have to consider when we enjoy all of that beautiful scenery. This is the Rob Taylor Report, and everyone is welcome to join the group session for another week of political therapy. You can call in if you have any political issues. We're going to have a guest first, so it'll probably be after the guest. But if you want, you can call in after that at 541-267-2124. And most of the information that is on the show can be found at CoosCountyWatchdog.com, or you can go to Coos News, and that's Coos News with a K, KOOSNEWS.com. I was over at one of my sponsors couple of days ago. I was talking to Jane and Jeff and Jane's over at Bayshore Auto, and I want to let everyone know that if you do need any of your latest auto repairs or RV repairs, please go out to Bayshore Auto, because they're a great group of people out there who are working very hard to keep your car running. If you've been keeping track of the news, if you all remember last week, I had talked about blackface, and I'm still probably the only one who came out in defense of blackface. I think that they're making a big deal out of something that's nothing. And if you really looked at the news and what's going on, that's all they're talking about, is blaming each other of being racist, sexist, or anything else that they want to be, when they're really ignoring a lot of the news. I don't know if you all know this, but the U.S. Treasury is set to borrow another $1 trillion for a second year to finance the deficit. That's right. The Democrats, the Republicans, and everyone up there in Washington, D.C. have gone over the budget again, and the U.S. Treasury Department is set to maintain elevated levels of long-term debt to finance the government's widening budget deficit, with new issuance projected to top $1 trillion for a second straight year. I hope that Trump, he has a lot of trouble fighting the people he's fighting, working with investigations. I would just like to think that he might go back to that conservative fiscal policy of trying not to spend more than we take in, because we've got a $22 trillion debt. And this deficit, this $1 trillion deficit that we're accruing every year, is just adding to that debt. Many of you don't know, but it's getting to be a campaign season again. And, I'm someone who's been on the campaign trail. I've worked with a lot of people over my time. And someone who I wanted to work with and never got a chance was a young man in New Mexico. I'm from New Mexico. I'm from Albuquerque. And I was there until the year 2001. And one of the last things that I did was I got 3,000 of my closest friends to get together and march down Central from the University of New Mexico all the way down to the downtown park, right down Central. We took up the entire 4 lanes. And, of course, the newspaper said we only had 300 people, but yet we took up 4 city blocks. We blocked up 4 city lanes, and I can guarantee you there was way more than 300 people. I had 300 people at the party. I had my goodbye party. So give me a break when they throw out these numbers. But we were marching against the Iraq war. I had no problem when they had military intervention going into Afghanistan, but when President Bush decided to go into Iraq, I knew it was his own imperialistic endeavors that he had wanted to do. It was pride in petroleum was the main reason we went into Iraq, and we can argue that to the death, but I was opposed to that war. I'm still opposed to it, and our own current president has said he's opposed to it and would like to bring some people out, but I have a guest on, and his name is Adam Kokesh. And let me tell you a little bit about Adam. Adam was born on February 1st of 1982 in San Francisco, California. That's right. He's an Aquarius from San Francisco. For a time, he attended the Native American Preparatory School in San Miguel County. Now, I'm from New Mexico, and that's San Miguel County, New Mexico. That's a very well-known school. I had several of my workers who I worked with come from that school, and I can tell you right now, it was something that had an esteemed reputation. But more importantly, Adam has served as a sergeant in the Iraq War, and he served for the United States Marine Corps, where he learned Arabic during his tenure. Well, that's a good thing, because I'll tell you what, I can barely speak English, so I'm impressed with anyone who can speak more than one language. Let's see, he also received a bachelor's degree in psychology from Claremont McKenna College. I hope he doesn't analyze me during the show, because I'm one screwed up person, and he can do it in 2 languages, so it does worry me. But in February of 2007, he became an active participant in the organization, the Iraq Veterans Against the War, and now he is running for president for the Libertarian Party. And Adam, are you with me?
Yes, thank you so much, Rob. Well, I appreciate that wonderful introduction. And because I think you kind of contradicted yourself there. Maybe you're trying to make yourself feel young, but I'm 37. I was born in 1982, as you point out. And despite your flattery, I don't feel any younger. But thank you for trying. I do have to point out, anytime someone introduces me as a presidential candidate, that it is correct that I am technically running for the office of the presidency for the Libertarian Party nomination, but you have to be some kind of psychopath to want to be president of the United States of America. Now, this isn't some kind of joke. I'm not saying I'm not running to win. We are running to win, but my platform is the peaceful, orderly, responsible dissolution of the entire United States federal government, and I would be resigning on day one as part of a single executive order. We might do a separate list of pardons, but basically I am only going to be president long enough to sign the document or documents that initiate this plan to dissolve the federal government. So it's true that I'm technically running for president, but it's really much more accurate to say that I'm running to turn the election into a referendum on whether or not the federal government should be allowed to continue to exist at all.
You know, Adam, you sound like me every time I go to one of these meetings. When I first got active here in Oregon, going to the county meetings or the city meetings, the first thing they would want to do is put me on a committee, and I would explain to them, well, as long as you understand that I'm going to dissolve and disperse the committee. I mean, you know, so they would get upset with me right away and say, well, we ain't putting you anywhere then. So when I read your platform, and what the neat thing was I listened to your book, Freedom. And
thank you.
Yeah, you know what? I like the fact that you were able to you did an audio book and you read the book yourself. I was wondering, do you do an Arabic version of that?
My Arabic translation would be terrible and an unbearable accent. Although we do have someone, I'm not sure the status, but we have someone currently working on an Arabic translation. And I hope soon after that's done that we could get an Arabic audiobook as well. Right now we just have a Spanish audiobook and a handful of other languages on our website that have all been done by volunteers, which is really quite amazing and just a testimony to, as you know, the compelling nature of the message of the book, which I take very little credit for. You know, I'm a messenger. I'm not the creator of the message, and this is a book that I started writing when I was in jail for civil disobedience because people sent me all these great books on libertarianism and philosophy and ethics and politics and technology and you know, where we're going in the future. I think that's an important part of that book, as you know, in Chapter 10, the last part. But right. I realized that we needed a way to communicate, or I wanted a way to communicate what to me was this essential part of my worldview, of my paradigm, that really flies in the face of the current paradigm of politics and statism of using coercion and violence through government to allegedly solve social problems and instead get to a state of voluntarism where we respect basic concepts of ethics. We treat each other with respect for individual rights, or as I like to describe it, voluntarism, the ideal that all human relationships should be voluntary. So I had a lot of people helping me write this book, not just on the inspiration side, but also on the editing side and the publishing and the distribution. And we just delivered 204,000 copies here. I'm in New Orleans right now for a month, all the way through Mardi Gras, putting together a really cool Mr. Freedom costume for that. I'm going to be passing out stickers and freedom buttons while everybody else is passing out beads and all sorts of other cool stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, before that we already had 50,000 copies in print, almost all in circulation, and a few million downloads. So yeah, it's been I had a lot of help on the editing side. I should say, and as well, I included 300 people in the editing process because I wanted the book to really be a product of as much collective wisdom as possible, even in the expression of it. I said, the book needs to meet these criteria, but ultimately it's 100 pages, 3 hours and 7 minutes. It's the ultimate red pill for what it is in that format, and I've just been blown away by how well received it's been.
I like the idea how you call it the red pill, and I'm going to go to commercial here in a second, but when we get back, I would like to talk about where you wrote this book and maybe some of the things that kind of led up to it, all right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Rob.
Well, we'll be right back.
Hi, Danny here at Far West Tire and Auto. Do you feel like you're constantly on the go? From daily commuting, dance recitals, and weekend adventures? I'm sure your tires have never let you down, but that much time on the road can cause some wear and tear on your tires. It might be time to consider upgrading to Nokians. With the 50,000-mile warranty on select Nokians, you can hit the road in style. So stop on by Far West Tire and Auto on Highway 101 Coos Bay. Always the right tire, always the right price.
Stop in today to the all-new one-stop gun shop, Hole in the Wall Gun Shop in Coos Bay. Your area leader in quality firearms, Hole in the Wall Gun Shop proudly features the top brands of new and used handguns, hunting rifles, black rifles, antique and collectible guns, ammo, mace, and more. Gun cleaning and repair, expert advice, and handgun safety classes for concealed carry permits are offered too. So stop into Hole in the Wall Gun Shop across from Kumyans on Highway 101 South in Coos Bay. We buy, sell, or trade.
The RV business is booming at the Boomin' Y, and Gibbs RV is looking for nice pre-owned RVs to consign or buy. Gibbs RV makes it so simple. They will come to your location, give you a fair appraisal, and help take care of all the paperwork. It doesn't get any easier than that. So let the professionals at Gibbs RV take the hassle out of selling or consigning your RV. Stop by and see them today at 1845 Ocean Boulevard in Coos Bay by the Big Boomin' Y in Empire, or check them out at gibbsrv.com.
We're back in session. It's the Rob Taylor Report. And here he is, Rob Taylor.
All right, Coos County, if you're joining me, we're talking with a so-called Libertarian presidential candidate, kind of, sort of, because you're going to have to listen to his proposition, Adam Kokesh from the Libertarian Party. Now, Adam, from what I understand is you wrote part of this book while you were, one of the times when you were being detained after being arrested for one of your protests, right?
Right. Well, this often gets misreported as Adam wrote this book in jail, and it's a somewhat more nuanced story than that. I always say that I started writing it in jail, and I got the inspiration and the idea for it from all the great books that other people had sent me while I was in jail. And I wrote a few sections, and I came up with the concept and the outline. But I did most of the writing soon after I got out. And, of course, the editing process involving 300 people on a Google Drive document, that wasn't possible while I was locked up for sure. Or, everything I've been able to do, touring the country, promoting it, and since then.
You and I probably have a common friend in Albuquerque's Libertarian Party, and his name is Joseph Knight. I don't know if you know Joseph.
I think only in passing.
In passing, that's okay.
Or by reputation.
Joseph Knight used to have an expression. He says, everyone wants freedom, and everyone's willing to get on a train, but not everyone's willing to go all the way down to the end of the tracks because some people aren't going to always be comfortable with too much freedom. And so some people are just going to get off. So Joseph would always say, so get on the freedom train and ride it until you can't stand it anymore, and that's your stop. You are going all the way down the tracks and going to the very end with your philosophy of dissolving the federal government. And that's if you
actually,
become president.
Hold on, Rob. That's well, I have a lot of issues with the train analogy, but more importantly, that's absolutely not true.
Okay.
Because what I'm talking about is really just the first administrative step in the localization of government. Now, yes, ideally, I'd like government localized down to the community and individual level, where we can transition to completely voluntary systems. It's like, if you're choosing to get off the train, then you chose to get off the train. That's absolute freedom right there. So what I'm talking about, though, is how do we have a peaceful, orderly, evolutionary, not revolutionary process in achieving this? And in getting rid of the federal government, we're really talking about empowering states in relative terms, and ultimately empowering individuals by decentralizing power. But in terms of people's idea of what government is, it really doesn't have to change at all. And we're not at this point yet. We have to win the Libertarian Party nomination first. But the appeal to the general public, who we might never really get tuned into these ideas or this philosophy, is, look, if you're a liberal and you live in a liberal state, or you're a conservative and you live in a conservative state, why should your states have to fight over which policy that you're all going to be forced into? Why not respect each other doing your own thing and letting one state go conservative and let one state go liberal? And that's totally within the realm right now of what people think of as what government should be. I'm not even challenging that concept at all with this platform. I am with the policy, because what I'd like to see after that is that we have an orderly transition to the states. People see that decentralization of power, localization of government leads to greater accountability, less corruption. It means that government services are much more in line with people's needs. And they're going to say, hey, that localization thing was really good. Let's get some more of that. And then they're going to want to get rid of their state governments and go down to the county level. And at the county level, you're going to see, a great amount of customization of government services, of accountability, and you're going to see the ability for people to split off and form their own communities, or split off as an individual and say, I want to be sovereign on my property. And at that point is when we're free. I think that's more important, is that we keep in mind that this is a philosophy based on ethics, and it's based on the ideal of you own yourself, and human relations should be ethical and voluntary rather than coercive and being forced upon you or violently imposed upon you. And then you go, well, okay, that's great, that's the ideal. How do we practically move in that direction?
Well, that leads
how
me.
do we get a lot of people on board so that we can have that consensus to stop doing this government thing, at least at first? Like, can we stop doing this federal government thing?
Right.
And I think most people are ready for that.
And I'm one of those who's I've said that if I had my druthers, I'd just rather get rid of 90% of the federal government. So I'm almost there with you, except that I believe there has to be a federal government to protect the borders. There has to be a federal government to regulate the commerce between the states. So are you saying if you became president, let's just say everyone decided this is your time, this is the time for the Libertarians, and you became president, you said you would resign on the first day. Are you saying you would eliminate all of the duties that are relegated to the U.S. government in the Constitution?
Right. They would all go to the states. The federal government, I would resign from the presidency to become custodian of the federal government and effectively be a bankruptcy agent with a fiduciary responsibility to carry out a preordained plan. The executive order that I'm going to sign, we will have written out in pretty good detail. There might be some places where we say, hey, we got to do the math here, hey, we got to work this out. But the executive order will be available on my website by the time of the Libertarian Party convention in 2020. So when we're actually asking people to vote for me, although I might change my name to End the Fed by that point. Okay. When we're asking people to cast a vote to end the Fed, then they will know exactly what they're voting for. And it's not this president or that president, or for me to be president. That's not an option. It's you can have an old party schmuck, or you can have this exact plan. But Rob, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you. You think you think the federal government is necessary? You said for borders. Does the federal government actually own all of the land within the borders of its government borders?
No, actually, most of the border is owned by private people and private individuals.
No. I mean the land within the border. Do you believe that the federal government has an ownership claim over
absolutely
all of its territory?
None at all. Yeah.
So you're against property taxes, then I take it, right?
I beg your pardon. Say that again.
So you're against property taxes?
Oh,
correct?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you believe that if I own my land, like I own 10 acres in Arizona, that I have the absolute allodial full right to do whatever I want as long as I'm not violating anybody else's rights or polluting anybody else's property, right? I can do what I want on my land?
That would be the libertarian philosophy, yes.
Well, is that what you believe in? Would you respect that?
For the most part, yes, I would.
Well, what's for the most part? When would you violate my property? What would be an appropriate time to do that?
Well, right now we have a case where in the Constitution it allows for eminent domain. We have a pipeline that's going in, and there are some people who are going to have their land taken away from them so that this pipeline can go through, and they really have very little recourse other than making comments to the Federal Energy Regulation Committee.
Hold on,
what I'm talking about.
But I'm not asking if what the status quo is or what the current words on magic pieces of paper in Washington, D.C. are. I'm asking for your actual opinion on this. I mean, you wouldn't take my land if you wanted to use it to put in a pipeline, would you? You would pay me for it.
Absolutely not.
What I want, or you would go around me, right?
No, I wouldn't. But I'll tell you what. Let's say you had the only water in a community. Let's say that your land had the only well in the community for, let's say, the state of Oregon. Let's just make it the state of Oregon, and your land had the only water in the community. At a certain point, I think there may be a reasonable reason to go in and violate your rights and to take your water to use it for the greater good in the community.
Okay, so you're fundamentally a socialist then. You want to be able to socialize things that you think are essential for survival, if you will. I mean, that's as good a standard as it gets. But you're saying you're willing to use a collective opinion or a will of a community to violate the property rights of an individual if the collective decides that it's in their best interest.
And that would be one of the stances, yes. And that's where the libertarian philosophy, for me, I guess, ends on that freedom train that I was speaking of before, is, yes, that if there was a necessity for the greater good of the community, I would use that socialistic collective to go in, and I would make sure that he was compensated for the land that we were taking and the water that we were taking. But if it meant the survival of the state of Oregon, I could see the arguments for that and legitimizing it, yes.
Well, now you're making it kind of an unrealistic scenario, because no individual could claim property that would prevent the survival of an entire community. I mean, you could always walk away from that person and go survive somewhere else.
Right.
So that's not really realistic. But I don't think you say you got off the train. I don't think you ever got on the train, brother. With all due respect, I think you're still on some kind of socialism train where the greater good can vote away the rights of the individual. And that's really problematic.
You are making a good argument
from an ethical perspective.
Right. I hold on. I agree with you that you're right, that I'm playing the devil's advocate, and I'm saying yes, at that certain perfect example. However, that would be the only very few limited reasons why that I would ever allow eminent domain. And in fact, that scenario where I just put out, that is an analogy that probably would never happen. The reason I put it out there is because it's an analogy that would never happen, because as you said, the free market would always provide something else as an alternative for people to get their water, correct?
Right. So there's a place where your point actually is valid in my world framework as well, and I kind of want to concede this point, if you will, but I think it gets to a better understanding of what you're getting at here. So if your house is burning down, and you live next door to me, you're my neighbor, and your hose just got melted, and you need to use my hose, and it's sitting on the side of my house, and you need to borrow my hose to prevent your house from burning down, I'm not going to say, well, you shouldn't steal my hose or borrow it without permission because that's theft. No, that's ridiculous. I want you to steal from me if it's petty and it's going to bring you a ton of value, and you're going to compensate me for it, and you're going to take responsibility for that, and there's a reasonable case to be made there, and I know that I'm going to be overcompensated. I'm not going to complain. But this is sort of like with the non-aggression principle. The only time it's okay to use force against another human being is if they're in a current state of being a threat to you or someone else. So, like, you can take, if it really is a matter of life and death and it's an individual petty thing, but that's not really what we're talking about. Because to go back to the border issue, I mean, do you think that you should be responsible for your own security, or should we socialize security services?
You should be responsible for your own security.
Well, that's great, because I don't want government borders. I don't want open borders or closed borders. I want legitimate borders. And the only legitimate borders are those that come about through private property and voluntary collectivization. So if I'm on my own land, I have the right to decide whoever I want anywhere in the world can come onto my land. And it's wrong. It is a crime for the American government to put up an imaginary line on a map and say, if those people, if they're outside that line, they can't cross that imaginary line. And if they do, we're going to kidnap them and forcibly relocate them. That's criminal. That's a violation of their freedom of movement. And in a sense, it's also a violation of my private property, which obviously the federal government, well, no real government by definition, actually respects. Because the government is a territorial monopoly on violence, on the initiation of force. It would be wrong for me to walk up to you and put a gun to your head, and say, give me half your income. But if an IRS agent does it in this convoluted administrative way, then it's okay.
Right.
So I would just suggest to you that if you and I are neighbors and we want to protect ourselves, we want to get some more of our neighbors together, we want to create a gated community, and we want to have a private security force around it, then we can do that, because that's capitalist, that's free market, that's a voluntary community-based security, as opposed to what you have when you're advocating for the borders of the United States federal government to be places where violence is used to limit freedom of movement. We can have a much more efficient system with free exchange rather than socialism. And I don't think security services, I think they're so important that that's the last thing we should trust the government.
Right. And then that's a very good point that you make. And I want to get back to talking about the non-aggression principle after this next break that we're going to get ready to take. If you could hold on afterwards, I'd love to get back to you. So we'll be right back.
Hey, don't be left standing in the dust. Take the lead with the help of Tom & Giggs 4x4 Performance Parts and Service. Off-road truck parts, lift kits, accessories, and more. Whether it's hitting the dunes, slinging some mud, or hitting the mountains, Tom & Giggs can definitely help you get your rig ready for your next adventure. What are you waiting for? Get it to Tom & Giggs Automotive next to Moe's Car Wash in Empire, Coos Bay, or visit TomandGiggs.com. Bigger is better.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans. Think you can't manage the down payment it takes to purchase a new home? Think again. You could move into a $150,000 home with as little as $1,500 down with our 1% down payment option. The rate today on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 3.99%, APR 4.19%. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to QuickenLoans.com.
Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans. Every day people ask me, Jay, did I miss out? Have the rates gone up? The answer is no. Rates are still low, and it's a perfect time to refinance your home, especially if your mortgage rate is higher than 4.25%. If you'd like to lower your interest rate and save thousands of dollars in interest without starting over on a new 30-year loan, a Quicken Loans Yorgage is what you're looking for. With our exclusive Yorgage, you can choose a term that works best for you, anywhere from 8 to 30 years. The rate today on an 8-year Yorgage is 3.25%, APR 3.75%. For 7 years in a row now, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation for customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. And for the 3rd year in a row, they've also ranked us highest in the nation for mortgage servicing. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to QuickenLoans.com. That's 800-QUICKEN.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
Your brain is an amazing thing, but as you get older, it naturally begins to change, causing a lack of sharpness or even trouble with recall. Thankfully, the breakthrough in Prevagen helps your brain and actually improves memory. The secret is an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, the name to remember, now available in stores everywhere. Statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
All right, so I have insomnia, but I've never slept better. And what's changed? Just a pillow. It's had such a positive impact on my life. And, of course, I'm talking about MyPillow. I fall asleep faster, I stay asleep longer, and now you can, too. Just go to MyPillow.com or call 800-919-6090. Use the promo code Hannity, and Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, has the special 4-pack. Now, you get 40% off 2 MyPillow Premiums and 2 Go Anywhere pillows. Now, MyPillow is made here in the USA, has a 60-day unconditional money-back guarantee, and a 10-year warranty. Go to MyPillow.com right now or call 800-919-6090, promo code Hannity, to get Mike Lindell's special 4-pack offer. You get 2 MyPillow premium pillows and 2 Go Anywhere pillows for 40% off, and that means once those pillows arrive, you start getting the kind of peaceful and restful and comfortable and deep healing and recuperative sleep that you've been craving and you certainly deserve. MyPillow.com, promo code Hannity. You will love this pillow.
We're back in session. It's the Rob Taylor Report. And here he is, Rob Taylor.
All right, Coos County. We're talking to Libertarian presidential candidate Adam Kokesh, and we were talking about the border and some of his philosophy on the border. And one thing that I wanted to talk about was the non-aggression principle is something that I believe in. It's something I believe that many of us should adhere to, and we should try to have the government adhere to it as much as possible. But Adam, would you explain the non-aggression philosophy? And I'd like to get back to maybe something on the border, a question that or issue that we were discussing.
Absolutely. And the non-aggression principle is really critical to describing the core of libertarianism, the essence of freedom, and the ethical foundation that's at the basis of the whole thing. So non-aggression principle is that it's a principle, that is, it indicates a correct and incorrect way to behave, and it's non-aggression, and that's that it is wrong to aggress against another person. And this is kind of obvious. It's just that we want to use, very precise language. Don't hit, don't steal, don't kill. Even if you're an IRS agent or a cop or a soldier, those ethical principles still apply. So the non-aggression principle is just a specific way of stating ethics, is that in that it's wrong to aggress against someone else. It's wrong to initiate force against someone else, or it's wrong to in any way deprive them of their self-ownership. So if I own myself, right, I as an independent human being in an independent consciousness in my own body, I own myself, because we don't really believe in human ownership anymore, right?
Right.
So let's look at the implications of that. I own myself. That's why it's wrong for you to hit me. That's my property. That's my face. You can't hit that. If you hit me, you're violating my property. You're violating something that I own. And it's wrong for you to do that. It's wrong for you to murder me because you're taking my life. I own my life. You're stealing from me all of my future. If you look at the Lockean, as in John Locke's concept of property rights, and he came up with this idea, a few hundred years ago, that if you mix your labor with the soil, or with natural resources, if I cut down a tree and carve a canoe out of it, that canoe is a product of my labor. I put my time, my past into that, right, so that I would have that. And that makes it legitimate property. If you steal that from me, in a sense, you're stealing the value of my past. Right. So all of these things, whether it's force or fraud or coercion, Either either I'm going to violently violate yourself and your property, or I'm going to threaten to violate yourself and your property so that you will give it to me without having to force it away from you, or I defraud you, as in I lie to you, or I deceive you in order to deprive you of your property. All of these are acts of aggression, and so that's why we call it the non-aggression principle.
And with that, of course, you're for self-defense, and I don't want people to think you're a pacifist, and just because you're a non-aggressive, that you're somehow, because of that self-ownership, you have a specific right to defend yourself. In fact, it's your duty. So the one thing I wanted to get back to is, as we were talking about the border, and you were talking about if, how, you don't want the government on the border using force because someone may want to have people from other countries on their property. Well, here's my question for that I believe that three of the reasons that we can't ever have an open border right now is partially because of the federal government. And there's three wars going on that causes us not to be able to have this open borders. And that's the war on drugs, the war on poverty, and the war on terror. All of those.
Wait, who said it? Wait, I didn't. Wait, are you for open borders? I didn't say anything about open borders. Who's for open borders? And
I didn't say anything about open borders. And you're right. I have not said anything about that, and I'm not saying that. But
no. You said. Hold on. You said that's why we can't have open borders.
That's why we can't have.
Okay. I'm not advocating for open borders.
All right.
When you say we can't have open borders, I'm like, yeah, we need private property borders.
We need private property borders. But my question would be is, what if a gentleman, let's say Alan owns a property down in Brownsville, and he's got a huge ranch, and he brings in a bunch of communists. He brings in 1 million communists to live on his 2 acres in Brownsville. Then the rest of us will have to put up with those 2 million communists who now have come in and want to change the fundamental beliefs of what we have created here in America. And that's why some people...
Hold on a second. I need to understand something. Just to back up. You said change things into 2000. So, like, if I'm on my 10 acres and I invite a communist onto my property, how is that a problem for you on your property?
Well, they may not stay on Adam's property, and they may take the public thoroughfares to wherever else they may want to go and start infiltrating our own country.
Well, hold on. Our own country. So you own the country now?
No, our country.
Do you own the country, or do you own property in the country?
I own property in the country.
The government doesn't own everything.
No one owns the country. No one owns the country, but I do own property inside the country, and what I'm afraid of and what I worry about, and that's why I like having the federal government protecting me from foreign invaders, is that I don't want my private property taken away from me because a bunch of communists moved to Adams land in Brownsville, Texas, and then ran for office.
Because it seems to me like the federal government, you live in Oregon,
right?
The federal government is a foreign invader. When the federal government tells you what you can and cannot do in Oregon, it's a foreign invader. When it's taxing, it's not only, just telling you what you can and cannot do. It's stealing from you. It's taking from you.
Right.
I mean, the Communist Manifesto has 10 planks.
Right.
And if you look at those 10 planks, we have most of them already in effect in this country. So, like, we already live under a communist, government by that standard. It sounds like the government's the problem. Why would you turn to the government
for the solution?
Defend yourself against individuals,
right,
when the government is violating you worse?
Right, absolutely, and I agree with what you're saying, and that's why I wanted you to clarify this for me, because when you're talking about the private property, and I understand that you don't want open borders or closed borders, you want people to be able to have private property up to the point where the ownership in this country, no one would ever not defend it, because we all would be owners of some part of this country, because more of it would be in the hands of the people. Because right now the federal government owns 53% of Oregon. I don't know if you knew that, but most of the western states, and I mean, you're from Arizona.
Well, hypothetically it owns all of it, but I know what you mean, that 53% of it is what it calls federal land, and that really is disturbing, and that should be, an alarming sign for anyone who cares about justice.
Tell me, what would you do about all the foreign wars that we have going on?
Well, the question really is, how do we get to a legitimate, ethical, efficient, and effective defense that's in line with the founders' vision for this country and the principles of freedom? And the founders of this country were against a standing army entirely. They wanted a militia-based defense. That's how they defeated the British. They knew that a militia-based defense was always more effective, more efficient. More of their people die, the less of our people. It's really simple. They want to march in lines and formations. We're going to do guerrilla warfare. It's a little bit more complicated with today's technology, but the basic strategic principles are still the same. The best defense is a well-armed population that refuses to be governed by anyone. And honestly, if you really really refuse to be governed by anyone, being armed is optional, as I think Gandhi clearly demonstrated.
Right.
So with the military, it's how do we transition to that legitimate ethical defense? And the answer is to first bring home all the troops from overseas, bring home as much of the equipment as we can, leave a skeleton crew there to handle the records, bring all the records back, and then sell the properties. And this gets into the bigger concept, if I may, just real quick. For me, as a bankruptcy agent of the federal government, my fiduciary responsibility in liquidation is to pay back the creditors. And it's not the debt on paper. We get to disown that. We're writing that off. It's not legitimate. You can't force people to pay for stuff they never had a say in. You can't force contracts on people. So the debt to the banks, the foreign corporations, the foreign governments, all of that we write off in this bankruptcy. It's gone. But as we're liquidating the assets of the federal government that don't get spun off into independent institutions like the VA or Social Security, which is how we're going to pay people back, they get liquidated, and all the proceeds from that liquidation goes into Social Security. And it's never going to be fair. It's never going to be perfect. But in terms of how do we practically move forward, it's more important that we end the injustice first rather than that we have a perfect, just redistribution of wealth. And by redistribution, I don't mean we steal from people and give it to people like government. I mean, you take from the thieves and you give it back to the victims, that kind of redistribution of wealth. So with the military, then once you've got everybody back home, then you have to separate what weapons are legitimately defensive and versus what are purely offensive. So nuclear weapons, de-weaponized, liquidated, long-range, aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines, things of that nature that are clearly about projecting power, dominance, control, exploitation, those go away. The personnel that operate those systems, by and large, also probably go away, or could not go away, but, they would be transitioned out just like all the IRS agents who are unnecessary. And we would take the remainder of that, which is legitimate defense, of ground troops, of tanks, of missile defense, of things like that you could be legitimately used by a community in a defensive means, and those would get apportioned among the state.
What do you think about the technology that Trump wants to use, the Star Wars technology, where we have missile defense programs?
Well, I think the technology itself is pretty amazing. It just scares me that government would have it, and that's really a problem because the government is not accountable. Individuals connected to a community or customers or shareholders, those are organizations that are much more immediately accountable. And when we see that those kinds of institutions are not accountable today, it's always because of government corporate protections or other things that government does to protect people from real accountability. So I think that there could be a great application of them. I think there might even be, hypothetically, a use for nuclear weapons, not in defense, but maybe in space exploration or mining asteroids or something like that. I don't think there should be a prohibition on nuclear weapons, but the only time they should ever exist is when there's, a broad-based economic base of consent and support. So, same thing with Star Wars. I mean, if an insurance company comes to me and says, hey, Adam, if you sign up for our insurance plan, we're going to track you with a satellite, and it's so good that if we ever see anybody draw a gun on you, we're going to shoot a laser beam from space that's going to, paralyze them instantly, and you don't have to worry about security anymore. I'd be like, yeah, all right, if it's reasonable, I can afford that, I can sign up for that. So like I said, I think that, I don't know that technology itself is really on the horizon, but, so much that we can't see is on the horizon.
Right.
Of so many amazing technologies. There's no way that we can't do way better than what we're doing now with government. And I'm pretty excited about that overall.
I agree with you, and that, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because we have the growth of socialism, collectivism, more and more government. Everyone who gets in runs for office, that's all they keep clamoring for is more and more government. And so I wanted someone to come on who had the almost opposite view, and that's why I appreciated you being here. I'm going to do a quick giveaway, and then I'm going to do a commercial, if that's all right, and then I'll come back, and maybe we can discuss a little bit more what your projected plans are for your campaign. Would that be all right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
You got it. All right, and anyone who's ever listening to my show, you know that we have a giveaway for both hours, and, of course, right now we're going to have that giveaway for one of the best fast food restaurants in town. It's McDonald's. There are 4 of them. There's one in Reedsport. There's one up there at Wally Mart, and there's one in North Bend and in Coos Bay. If you would like to get a 1 free dessert of your choice, a 1 free small McCafe beverage of your choice, or a free breakfast sandwich of your choice, and a buy one get one free coupon list, then all you have to do is be the third caller at 541-267-2124, and we'll be right back.
There's no reason to guess. The verdict is in, and the solid winner continues to be Herbal Choices.
I think everyone knows why Herbal Choices is the leader.
You and I see Herbal Choices the same way, like a part of our family. They know me when I come in, and they're always happy to show me all that's new, including Jim Belushi's new harvest.
Hi, Jim Belushi here. My Belushi Farms private vault is exclusively here, Southern Oregon coast at Herbal Choices. Check it out. It's the only choice.
And no matter where you are, Herbal Choices is close by. Coos Bay, Charleston, and Bandon. They always keep me updated on their website at www.theherbalchoices.com.
No one can compete with Herbal Choices prices. They now have so many locations that they buy large quantities and pass the savings along to their customers. It's their people, friendly, always ready to help with knowledgeable answers. It's like dealing with family.
Do not operate a vehicle under the influence of marijuana. For use by people 21 and older, keep out of the reach of children.
Well, I was driving across town when my car got down, started lurching and trying to die. Well, luckily there was a shop, and when it struggled to a stop, a nice fella met me right outside. I said, "Man, something's wrong. What the heck is going on?" He said, "I tell you this, I got no doubt. You just relax and don't you worry. We can fix it in a hurry, 'cause your car is what we're all about. We do it all."
Bayshore Auto and RV Repair, your one-stop shop for all your automotive and RV mechanical repairs. Stop by and see Jeff and his friendly staff on Bayshore Drive in Coos Bay.
Looking for a new or used firearm? You should get to know the friendly folks at World Pawn Exchange. Located at 1980 Sherman in downtown North Bend, World Pawn Exchange buys, sells, and trades firearms of all types. And with their extensive, ever-changing inventory, they could have just the right firearm for you. If they don't have that gun that you want in stock, they'll be more than happy to special order it for you. World Pawn Exchange in downtown North Bend, where you'll find more than you can possibly imagine.
We're back in session. It's the Rob Taylor Report. And here he is, Rob Taylor.
All right, I want to thank Mike. You're the winner of the contest out there, and we'll be having another contest in the next hour. But right now, we're talking to Adam Kokesh. Adam Kokesh is running for president for the Libertarian Party. And, Adam, I got a question for you. We had Chris Ann Hall. I don't know if you're familiar with Chris Ann Hall. She came into town, and she's a constitutionalist from former attorney for the Attorney General's office, the U.S. Attorney General's office. And one of the things that she says is that freedom is liberty without morality. Now, how would you respond to someone saying something like that? Freedom is liberty without morality, because freedom is total anarchy is what she's saying, but liberty is something that's grounded in morality. And therefore, that's why you had things like the French Revolution that was based on all the freedom that without any morality, and that's why you got the guillotine. Whereas America had liberty based in morality, and that's why we have the United States. Where would you be with that one?
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought freedom was a pretty simple concept. That seems like someone's projecting a lot of personal issues onto this. You know, I mean, I can call a sea cow a mermaid, but that doesn't make it true. You know, we can play with the definitions of words all we want. We can twist things around. But, this is someone who is justifying government. If they're a constitutionalist, they're saying that, if I put words on paper, I get to use violence against you. That's not someone that you should trust to have any kind of consistent ethical framework. So it doesn't surprise me that in order to justify, that kind of tortured worldview, that logic has to be, or I should say definitions have to be equally tortured and twisted. And I don't know if tortured and twisted is really, might be an exaggeration here. But certainly, anybody trying to impose all these complicated, implications of words is generally someone who's trying to manipulate you. I can define freedom very, very simply. Freedom is what you have when no one is forcing their will upon you. And if you want to come up with your own definition of freedom, like, hey, it's a free country.
You're free to do it. Yeah.
Okay, it's not a free country, but at least we have sufficient respect for freedom of speech. The worst that'll happen is you'll get locked up in a loony bin if you say that freedom is freedom means purple.
Right. We don't have a whole before you go on. We don't have a whole lot of time yet. You hear that music? Would you tell everyone how they can get?
All right. Yes. So thank you, Rob, for the chance to get in my plugs. My main website is thefreedomline.com. If you can get to thefreedomline.com, you can get to my presidential campaign website without having to remember how to spell Kokesh. And you can find my book for free there, and it's in every digital format, including an audiobook. And, Rob, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, Adam, and I appreciate it. And we'll be right back after this.
And here he is, Rob Taylor.
I'll tell you what, if you were looking for political therapy, you're getting it today. That last guest was very interesting. And like I said, one of the reasons I wanted to have him on is that we're facing a crisis in this country. We're going through a kind of an identity crisis. And the president nailed it in his speech just this last week when he talked about our country not becoming a socialist country. It's something that I've been warning out about for the last 20 years. I remember when we were doing the Tea Parties and the Tea Party marches, one of our chants were the socialists are coming, and we weren't wrong. They called themselves Democrats, and then they started calling themselves liberals and progressives, and now they're just full on, hey, we're socialists. But let's face it, these are a bunch of communist Marxists that we're dealing with, and we're dealing with them in our own Salem legislature, and we're having a huge problem with not only them are trying to go after our guns, but overtaxing us, taking away more of our property rights. And you think it wouldn't end, but guess what? Senator Wyden has introduced what they're calling the Oregon Wildlands Act. We've got fire season approaching, and I don't know about you guys, but living in a wood house surrounded by 60-foot trees, I get a little concerned about fire season. That's someone, I don't know if anyone's if you've been in a fire. I have, and I can tell you right now, fire's bad, real bad. So, it's something that I think that our federal government should just get the hell out of our business and let the state deal with it, because we would probably know better how to deal with it ourselves. But our wise Senator Wyden, has decided to put in the Oregon's Wildlands Act, and yet the U.S. Senate is expected to vote on the Oregon's Wildlands Act coming up soon, and it will create thousands of acres of new wilderness and land set-asides where thinning and fuel reductions will be restricted. Yeah, that's what we need. Well, I wanted someone to talk about this, and I know someone who is right on the issue with that, and that's our county commissioner in Curry County. And I want to give you a little background. This is Court Boice. He has heritage in this state going back to the 1800s. He was born in Curry County. He has been a person who's worked as a jet boat pilot, a river guide, and an outfitter. So this guy knows what's out there in the woods. And publicly, he has been a member of the Oregon State Marine Board, and currently is serving as a commissioner in Curry County. Court Boice, are you with us today?
Rob, great to be able to talk to you. Thank you, and congratulations on your show. And, you're going to make a difference. You're going to reach a lot of people in this region of Oregon, and I'm just really grateful for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So what's going on with Senator Wyden and this Oregon Wildlands Act?
It's interesting. It is gaining a little bit of momentum. I was just on with the AOC Board of Directors, Association of Oregon Counties, today on the Natural Resources Subcommittee for the legislative, the full session they're having right now, and what our position should be as a combined county. We're neutral on that. Of course, the rural counties are not Joe County, Jackson County. The Rogue River goes right through our territory, and that's part of our heritage, a critical part of our heritage. And so you said it very well in the beginning in your statement there. What I asked for on AOC today was, let's just at the very least have a moratorium on wilderness areas. What it's doing, it is going to make it impossible for the firefighters, the Forest Service, to get to the fires when access is essentially non-existent. And even if the trails are open, we came so close, Rob, at the Klondike fires. It moved north on the 14th. It got its flare-up and went into the Shasta Coastal drainage, that sacred area. It's just a miracle. We kept them from going further north, which would have went into the Rogue River Wilderness and the Rogue Wild River section. And of course, that's Stone Paradise Lodge. That's it's just beyond magical, that whole area. And so I've been a little bit, I've been unable to convince people around the state that this is going to actually increase the level of fire, catastrophic fires, when you can't get in. To reduce the fuels, the ground fuels, the 1-hour fuels that ignite. These are not normal fires. Some fires are good in the natural sense.
Right.
Most are not. And so because we have managed so poorly our forest, our federal lands, Oregon is I hate to say it because it sounds like the sky is falling, but I'd love to be wrong on this. It's a ticking time bomb when you look south, what happened to California, as you well know.
Yeah, like I said, I just have to look outside my front door, and I imagine what it would be like having those fires that happened in California happening right out my back door. I mean, that's something that we always are preparing for the tsunami. They're always talking about the tsunami alarms and all these preparations, but I don't hear a lot of preparation for the fire as much as they prepare for the big wave. When I always think, well, if we do have a fire, hopefully the big wave will hit at the same time, and maybe we can cancel one out with the other. But it's maybe that's just wishful thinking. But are they doing anything in the administration right now to thin out those forests? Has there been any proposals to do anything further about these problems?
Well, that I had an op-ed in the Eugene District Guard on this issue, less than a month ago.
Uh-huh.
And to answer your question, when you deal with the fringe environmental movement that's essentially has had their way for the last 30 years, they're doubling down. And it gets back to that absolute unacceptable management that has given Curry County. I mean, no area has been hit harder in this state, no county, worse than us when you look at 3 major fires in 18 months, 2 of them catastrophic. We have burnt 1 million acres in this, and we're only, visualize this, we're 1 million acres, give or take, in our county. We've burned 1 million acres in 32 years. Obviously, some of those are reburns, and therein lies the lack of management, what it's done to our water quality, our air quality, incinerating millions of wildlife, the fish habitat, the Illinois and the Chaco rivers, 2 of the most pristine rivers anywhere in the world, and we're destroying our backyard. So to answer your question, when somebody as goofy as you can possibly imagine looks at me and says, "You burned 200,000 acres, that's renewal," I mean, your head just spins because that is what they believe, or they're so resistant to taking responsibility for their failed policies, they're still not getting it.
Right, and that's kind of what I've seen, and it really is upsetting that these agencies are still taking that stance. And well, you know that a lot of these government agencies, once they make a mistake, they don't want to cop to the mistake, and that's part of the battle, is getting them to admit that there was a problem in the first place. I think we're going to, if you can, could you hold on? We're going to get to a commercial here because I got to pay a few bills, and when we return, we'll continue the conversation. We'll be right back.
Stop in today to the all-new one-stop gun shop, Hole-in-the-Wall Gun Shop in Coos Bay. Your area leader in quality firearms. Hole-in-the-Wall Gun Shop proudly features the top brands of new and used handguns, hunting rifles, black rifles, antique and collectible guns, ammo, mace, and more. Gun cleaning and repair, expert advice, and handgun safety classes for concealed carry permits are offered too. So stop into Hole-in-the-Wall Gun Shop across from Cumion's on Highway 101 South in Coos Bay. We buy, sell, or trade.
The RV business is booming at the Boomin' Y, and Gibbs RV is looking for nice pre-owned RVs to consign or buy. Gibbs RV makes it so simple. They will come to your location, give you a fair appraisal, and help take care of all the paperwork. It doesn't get any easier than that. So let the professionals at Gibbs RV take the hassle out of selling or consigning your RV. Stop by and see them today at 1845 Ocean Boulevard in Coos Bay by the Big Boomin' Y in Empire, or check them out at GibbsRV.com.
Hi, Danny at Far West Tire and Auto here. Sometimes deer like to jaywalk, or even once in a while a basketball forgets to look both ways before bouncing across the street. When those moments happen, be ready for the stop with the Michelin Premier All-Season Tire, a tire design with more performance in mind. Far West Tire and Auto on Highway 101 Coos Bay. Always the right tire, always the right price.
We're back in session. It's the Rob Taylor Report. And here he is, Rob Taylor.
Hey, this is Rob Taylor on the Rob Taylor Report, and we're joining Court Boice for the Curry County Commissioner, and we're discussing some of the major problems with land management here. And one of them is getting the federal government to thin out some of the land that they own in this area. And they've got a bill called the Oregon Wildlands Act that's being pushed by Senator Wyden. And the reason that we have to look at this and keep an eye on these type of things is that the Democrats have now taken over the House of the U.S. Congress. And therefore, they're going to be able to get through things that they weren't able to get through before in the last 4 years. So, Court, what other things are going? What's on the horizon right now with all these forest acts that are going through?
You know, you really got to the point a bit ago, and that is the level of risk we have here. And I want to, just for a moment, if you don't mind, go back to the California. If you take any measurement, Rob, square miles, square acres, doesn't matter. The dense level of ground fuels that California has compared to what Oregon has, where we grow the highest quality, fastest growing trees on the planet, and we don't manage that ground fuel. Those fires that kill even what are normally fire-resistant old growth. So you look at what has happened in Curry County. What more what better example could you have for where we are on that risk level? And so I've been sounding the alarm. So have other people that are trying to be responsible on this, and certainly you've picked up on it probably as early as anyone. And so it's not just a simple matter of telling people that live outside the urban growth boundaries of our cities in southwestern Oregon to, fire-wise their homes. It goes beyond that because these fires will jump.
Right.
It's just hard to imagine when with the winds and the heat and the oxygen, all those the triangle that makes these fires so dangerous. And even in Curry County, where we got within about 2/3 of a mile from losing Agnes on the 14th when it flared back up the Klondike, and then it got within just slightly less the Chetco Bar within Brookings, about slightly less than 4.5, 5 miles. It's history can teach us a lot, and so that's where we're at. Back to your Wildlands Act, though, it's this appetite to keep people out of and restrict them from going into certain areas. I have proposed that we should be 100 feet minimum on each side of every road in the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest. And yes, it'll take time, but to thin those, to cut that brush, put people back to work here, and reduce that fuel. And I could talk about that for a half hour.
They just up in Florence, I've got a friend up there in Lincoln County, and he was talking about a closure they just had up there. BLM just closed off a huge part of the land, and he was talking about how that was the only access in and out of the area. And so they once again cut off access. They don't allow the land to be managed, and then they're going to create a situation where it's just the opportunity for a huge wildfire to happen. And and you talk about the history of it, we should learn from the history, but they even had a recent study by the U.S. Forest Service that found thousands of homes in Southwest Oregon, all over Southwest Oregon, are at risk for wildfire. Now, even their own studies are saying this, but yet they don't seem to be responsive to that.
Well, the Oregon Department of Forestry is definitely more responsive than the federal government, but it's sometimes the federal government, as you just stated, it's easier to lock something off or up because they can't afford the maintenance. Yet they'll spend a couple $100,000 per mile to destroy culverts and decommission the roads, which then it compounds the entire problem by no access. Southwest Oregon is the most rugged terrain, some of the most rugged terrain anywhere in North America. And so if these wilderness fires that begin, and 80% of them, Rob, as you know, are started by lightning. So when they get into the wilderness, if the Forest Service doesn't respond immediately and get these fires out, usually within a 10 to 14-day period, they're not going to get them out. They can't get firefighters in, no access, horrible terrain, and even if they can get them into some of the places, even if it's in a trail capacity, they can't get the firefighters out or they're too great a risk. So that's why I want the moratorium on wilderness areas. That's why I want this incredible, aggressive approach to ground fuel management. And, sometimes I think it's falling on deaf ears. Sometimes I think they're finally starting to get it. But again, you mentioned all those homes in southwestern Oregon that are at a greater risk.
Right.
Anybody that's listening to this program right now, get after your neighbors.
Yeah.
Get your pruners out. Get the stuff away from your home. Doesn't mean you got to cut trees ordinarily or necessarily.
Yeah, it's all that fuel underneath, right?
It's what the professionals call the 1 hour fuel. It's basically the size of your finger, maybe a little bigger. Your little finger, maybe a little bigger. And it's just like you can take a torch to worst conditions and you can put it at the base of a old growth. It's probably not going to light, but you get enough dense fuel. These fires burn 2,000 degrees.
Right.
A normal fire burns about 1,200 degrees. It doesn't destroy. It's part of nature. It doesn't, as a rule, of course. That's why prescribed burns sometimes are a good thing. But the prescribed burns, the normal burn cycles, don't scorch the soil for 40 years like the mega fires do.
And in Bandon, it's even worse because we're surrounded by all that gorse that's just full of oil. And, I mean, that stuff, when it goes, it starts really it just burns like nobody's business because it's a very fire-friendly plant, And we have a lot of that in – I don't know if you have a lot of – do you have a lot of gorse problem in your area? Because I know it was brought to Bandon, and it's a huge problem up here.
I'm glad to hear you mention that too, and I help with a gorse action group and I'm really thankful you brought that up because as a kid growing up, my dad would say, "Stay away from that stuff. It's got diesel in it," and that's where some of the folks that even in my local citizens here that go, "Well, we survived. Fire's good." That kind of nonsense. Bandon burned both in 1913 and 1936.
Yep.
Rob, the people would try and save their cars in Bend, and of course my family was all born in Langless, so we have a little bit of empirical history and knowledge of what happened. But they would drive their cars down to the beach. The fire was so unbelievably hot, somewhat due to the gorse, but it was a combination of like the perfect storm. But their cars burned on the beach.
The beach, yeah.
You know, Tillamook burned. Port Orford has burned twice, once in, I think, 1904 and once in 1882, something like that. But the whole point is we are exposed here, and we've got to get it right. And sometimes I feel like I'm getting good sound help, and sometimes I feel like I'm not getting help. And so, yeah, you tell me lock off some more wilderness area, and it's just the odds just go up, where we're not going to be able to fight these fires, and the consequences could be absolutely unspeakable.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. And like I said, this is one of my greatest fears, because I've seen fires in the forest, and I come from the desert area, and I've seen fires in the desert, and you're not able to see them as well in the forest as you do in the desert because of the forest canopy. But in the desert, you can watch a fire run across a field. And I mean, literally, as fast as a man can run, that fire will burn if it's got the right wind to its back. And you can watch it just race across a field, burning hundreds of acres within just minutes, And so I don't think people know the intensity that this could happen,
Yes, sir. And, of the triangle, the oxygen, the fuel, I think, Rob, winds are, especially in this area. Well, You saw that in California as well with the Santa Ana winds. When those winds decide they're going, they make their own weather. They just absolutely, as you just stated, can move things so fast. And back to the Chetco Bar. It started 23 miles from Brookings, and on the 21st of August, 21st and 22nd, it went 18 miles in less than 70, I think it was 71, 72 hours. And then we got a wind change that was coming from the east, headed north, and that's Brookings. No doubt in my mind. It's not overstating or over-dramatizing. It's an absolute miracle.
In fact, we were sitting here during the commercial, and I was talking with my producer about the Paradise Fire in California. And anyone who thinks that we're overstating this problem should go back to the pictures and the videos about that happened during that fire, where people were literally cooked in their cars, where there were animals that were burned down to their skin, still alive and trying to crawl around and survive. I mean, if anyone saw the devastation that this is happening, there is no way, Court, that you and I could ever underestimate this or understate it. You know what I'm saying?
It's wonderful to be around like-minded people, and I don't have time for the forgive me, but the idiots that absolutely refuse to look at common sense and logic and the facts right in front of their face, because they're jeopardizing my family, they're jeopardizing my citizens, they're jeopardizing the other cities that we're proud to say is part of Southwest Oregon.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, I thank you for joining. Is there anything that you would want to tell people to do, or that we should respond to for this bill, or anything that you would think that people would want to hear? And
if they want to write both Merkley and Wyden and Congressman DeFazio and say, no, this is a bad bill, at the very least, postpone this for a couple of sessions till we see if we're going to have a third consecutive, well, actually it's 3 out of 4 horrible fire seasons that are abnormal, Rob, in the last 4 years, 3 out of the last 4 years. So everybody's at risk. Watch out for your neighbors. Again, fire, just like the Eagle Fire, it jumped a mile when it crossed the Columbia River.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a time we all become educated, well-informed, and take on the responsibility. We live in Oregon. If we want to save this state, we better save the forest.
I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you for joining us, and I'll definitely have you back on in the future for updates, because fire season is coming, right?
We're about 4.5 months away.
Yep.
And we have not had enough rain. It's doing a little better right now, but Rob, thanks again, and keep reaching out to the folks. And if they've got questions, they can get to my office through you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And with that, we'll be right back.
For 20 years, the Oregon Firearms Federation has been Oregon's only no-compromise voice for gun rights. While other organizations who claim to speak for gun owners made deals to bargain away your liberty and property, office stood face-to-face with the gun grabbers in Salem to protect your rights. But there's never been a more dangerous time to be a gun owner in Oregon, and we need your help. To become part of the fight for Second Amendment rights and to sign up for free legislative alerts, please visit our website at OregonFirearms.org. That's OregonFirearms.org.
In just a fast few minutes from right now, you can have life insurance for up to $500,000 without taking a medical exam and without leaving your home. We're Fast Life, and we're going to make this easy and fast. Odds are that you don't have enough insurance, or you're paying way too much for what you got, or you don't have any, and that's not good. Listen, nobody likes to think about life insurance, but we're grown-ups now, so call and protect your family. 1-800-254-9567, or go to fastlife.life. You've got insurance? That's great, but you may be able to get more coverage and pay less than what you're paying now. And with no medical exam, you can get it right over the phone, and that's fast. Faster than a speeding bullet? No, but fast. And we also said we make it easy. So call and get quotes, then submit an application over the phone, and that's it. And that's easy. Get approved, and coverage starts instantly. And that's fast. Faster than the speed of light? No, but fast. Call 1-800-254-9567 or go to fastlife.life. Fastlife.life. It's revolutionary. It's Fast Life.
If you run your own business, when you're not on the job, you're on the road. In your van. Signs that say detour and do not enter are just plain bad for business. Well, here's a sign that's great for business. It says 0% financing and up to 2 years complimentary scheduled maintenance on Mercedes-Benz Sprinter or Metris vans. Powerful, capable, and affordable. That's Mercedes-Benz Van Power. With pioneering safety technologies and low total cost of ownership, Mercedes-Benz vans are the right choice for your business. Check out the full lineup of Mercedes-Benz vans starting at just $25,995. 0% financing and up to 2 years complimentary scheduled maintenance. That's van power for all. Mercedes-Benz. Vans. Born to run.
Starting ad price refers to base model Metris worker cargo van. Excludes all options, taxes, title, registration, transportation charge, and dealer prep fee. Please see your dealer or go to mvvans.com for further details and exclusions.
Are your medical bills piling up due to cancer or another serious illness? You are not alone. Many people face this challenge. Here's how Coventry Direct can help. You can receive an immediate cash payment by selling your life insurance policy. If you have $100,000 or more of life insurance, you may be eligible to sell your policy, even a term policy. To find out if you qualify, call Coventry Direct today at 1-800-510-2800 to speak to one of our policy specialists. That's 1-800-510-2800. The cash you receive from selling your policy can be used to help pay medical bills or whatever you choose to give you financial security and peace of mind. Call Coventry Direct at 1-800-510-2800 or visit us at coventrydirect.com. Coventry Direct, giving you the cash you need when you need it most. Coventry Direct is a marketing company and will refer qualified policies to a licensed entity.
We're back in session. It's the Rob Taylor Report. And here he is, Rob Taylor.
All right, Coos County, if you've been listening, this has been one very entertaining program today. I tell you what, the first guest was just absolutely a wild man for extrapolating some of his incredibly interesting ideas. And our second guest, Court Boice, I have to give him kudos. We were just down there this past week talking about the Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance and trying to stiffen up that bill so that the people of Curry County can protect themselves from the laws that are coming out of the Salem legislature. One of those is being SB 501 and whatnot. So we're going to keep an eye on that. But until then, I've got one of my sponsors on the show. I've got Tim from Tom and Gigs. Tim, are you there?
Hey, I'm here, man.
Hey, what have you been doing, man?
Oh, I've just been salivating to get on the show. I mean, it's just I got to get my say in too, you know.
Have you been listening to this?
Oh, well, not much. I've been busy, but I what you just said right there. But you tell me, why do we have people in Salem writing unconstitutional laws?
Right.
If it's unconstitutional, it's null and void anyway. So I don't care what they do. The Second Amendment says I have those rights, and I was given those by God, not man. So you can't legislate my rights away or anyone else's rights away. You want to have the right to smoke or right to own a firearm. It doesn't matter. They can't legislate your rights. I don't care what they do in Salem. It's unconstitutional. Those people should be ousted out of office and get people in there that know what the hell they're doing and take their oath serious that they swore uphold when they took their office. So what is their problem up there?
Well, I don't know, but what you sound just very much in line with my first guest. I'll have to get a recording of that over there to you, because what you're just saying is exactly the type of thing he was espousing. It's just the fact that anything they write is unconstitutional, that somehow we should have to follow that. It's absolutely incredibly egregious that they would think that.
Yep, I know this is a thing for my shop here, but there's this. I can't hardly pronounce his name. Frederic Bastiat. The safest way to make laws respected is to make them respectable. Okay, there's an answer right there. None of them are. They're all a joke, you know. And also the care of human life and happiness, and not their destruction, is the first and only legitimate object of government. That was Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
Why do we have any people that have any wisdom or common sense knowledge up there in Salem? I mean, I'd rather just. We don't need liars and attorneys. We need common Joes like either you or me or somebody.
Well, it's all about the greenbacks. I don't think it has anything to do with our rights, because if it had to do with our rights, most of them wouldn't even be up there and bothering with it, would they?
Yep, you can't legislate my rights away. I'm sorry. I don't care what you say.
Amen. I agree.
Anyway, brother, our shop, though, is you have all the rights you want to come down here and spend your money in any way you wish, however much you want. And, of course, we'll try to help you do that. But you just got to come down and check stuff out. But if you need if it's just a muffler to tailpipe, if it's an alignment, if it's four-wheel drive parts, either towing or pulling, winches, easier to get in your rig with some different steps and tonneau covers and all the different toolboxes and stuff we do from Potec and Wickham Weld. Come down, check us out. Even make you a deal on a Tom and Gig shirt and hat or something. Spend a little money, might give you one for free. You never know. But,
there you go.
But come down and check us out. Check our RC stuff out. I know it's a little bit of a delay on taxes compared to normal. Usually we're seeing a lot of people come with their tax money, and they want to get their car fixed because they maybe spend a little more on Christmas than they planned. But come down and check us out. I think we'll be very competitive on most everything. We'll tell you where we can meet or beat the internet, and a lot of times we can do both. Like I say, it's better to shop local and try first and give us a shot. And, hey, if we can help you and save money and we can make a buck, then everybody wins. And we spend money locally too, so we need to keep it in the community if we can.
Oh, I would agree with you. And I'll tell you what, my wife has been talking about she wants me to take her down there so she can check out all those RC cars. She's a mechanic at heart, and she's been wanting me to come down there and show her what you guys have as far as that in supply.
We'll fire one up and let her go play in the shop out here with her. Let her have a little fun.
Oh, see there, you're going to keep you up on that one. We'll be down there to see you.
That's it, buddy.
Well, I thank you, Tim.
Anyway, easy to find us. I know my time's limited. You guys, people waiting. So 135 South Shoneman in Coos Bay is the address, right behind the Moe's Car Wash here, just one block past the Boom and Y, going towards the beaches. Hang a left right there, and you'll find us. And phone number 541-888-4660. And if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. So stand up for your rights. Don't let these people try to tell you otherwise. So,
amen.
Anyway, we just need to. I think a few of these people need to be, maybe sued or something.
Yeah, I something.
Hopefully, our sheriff is going to be one of those guys that ain't going to put up with the garbage.
Hopefully so. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate
you guys. Thank you. Have a great one.
You always have to worry about that. Where are your politicians going to stand? Where are your representatives going to be? Are we going to have representatives who, when the legislature decides to just outright confiscate our weapons? Are people going to defend us? You got to ask yourself that, and I think that's something that's a criteria that we should have for all of our candidates, but especially if you're in the Republican Party. I don't want to bash the Republican Party. I think that there's some very good people in the Republican Party, especially the local party. I think that a lot of times they have to take the brunt of their state party leadership because the state party controls the purse strings, and sometimes the local party has to follow what the state party is doing so that they can get this money. And that's what happens a lot of times. You'll see that we'll run perfectly good candidates who are good conservative candidates, and because they can't get any money other than from the state party, the first thing the party does is water our candidates down, and that's exactly what they did in this last election. And I can tell you right now, we're never going to win in the Republican Party by putting moderates and fence walkers in the position of candidates. And I'll give you an example of that. House Representative Cherry Helt. I hope that's the proper way to pronounce her name. Cherry Helt. She's a Republican from District 54. She's rated F by the Oregon Firearms Federation. But even worse, she introduced a bill today that would eliminate bump stocks for people in Oregon. I don't know why she's doing this, because it's already been eliminated by the president through a presidential mandate. And I don't agree with what the president did. I think it's a bad idea. And I'm not going to get too upset because I'm not someone who would ever use a bump stock. I don't think it's something that most professional gun shootist would use as a bump stock. So it's ridiculous to think that she should introduce this bill. But I'll tell you what, Miss Cherry Helt, you're not going to go unscathed. We're going to come after you. We're going to come after you maybe with a recall. I've already talked to people on the phone, and the papers are already being drafted, and that means that any Republican who decides to support, endorse, or even worse, introduce an anti-gun bill, we're going to put you up for a recall. We've already decided this. And when I say we, I'm talking about most of the people who are behind the Second Amendment Preservation Ordinance and the Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance. We're not going to tolerate that anymore, and we're going to make sure that it's taken care of. It's something that's, I tell you, if we don't fight now at the local level, who's going to fight for us? Something else that's happening is the first year of gun seizure, the gun seizure law, that's SB 917 in Oregon, the red flag law. Guess what? Just as we predicted, 74 people lost their rights. They lost their Second Amendment right. They lost their Fourth Amendment, their Fifth Amendment, their 14th Amendment rights because of this very bad red flag law. What has happened is that dozens of petitions seeking to take away guns from potential dangerous individuals were filed in Oregon during the first year of its new law. Data provided by the Oregon Judicial Department shows 74 petitions for extreme risk protection orders were filed in 2018. About 2/3 of those were filed by law enforcement officers and 1/3 by family or household members. That's a disturbing number. One petition was filed by an employer. Oh, great. Now my employer can tell me that he wants to take away my guns. Great. That's what I need. I tell my employer that he's a jerk, because he is, and now he's going to tell the cops to take away my guns. That's what I need. But if a court finds clear and convincing evidence of a threat, a final order can be issued that takes away a person's gun rights for up to 1 year. 1 year of losing your rights. Typically, most petitions are granted, but data on that was not available. Well, of course not. Well, that's it. 74 people lost their rights last year because of a bad law. And that's why we're trying to stop these laws, and that's why we're trying to start these Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance and have them filed and ready to go as initiatives or passed by the commissioners in all 36 counties in Oregon. Well, I think it's time for another giveaway. It's that time, folks, so get the dials ready. Here we are for the second hour's giveaway, and it's for the Lucky Star Restaurant, one of my favorite restaurants in town, located at the bottom of the hill of Newmark, right on Highway 101. Boy, I'll tell you what, if you ever go there in the evenings, Their sesame seed chicken is to die for. That stuff is excellent. But tonight, we're giving away the house special, which includes barbecue pork, sweet and sour pork, fried shrimp, spring roll, pork fried rice, and pork chow mein. If you would like to be the beneficiary of this prize, you should call me at or be the third caller at 541-267-2124, and we'll be right back.
Looking for a new or used firearm? You should get to know the friendly folks at World Pawn Exchange. Located at 1980 Sherman in downtown North Bend, World Pawn Exchange buys, sells, and trades firearms of all types. And with their extensive, ever-changing inventory, they could have just the right firearm for you. If they don't have that gun that you want in stock, they'll be more than happy to special order it for you. World Pawn Exchange in downtown North Bend, where you'll find more than you can possibly imagine.
The clear leader, Herbal Choices. Join the Herbal Choices happy family for best selection. 100 strains, always fresh. Unlike stores that always have the same old products, there's always something new at Herbal Choices. 100 strains and growing. And check Jim Belushi's new harvest. Just in again and better than ever at Herbal Choices. Coos Bay, Charleston, and Bandon. And online at theherbalchoices.com.
Hey, Jim Belushi here. Herbal Choices on the southern Oregon coast is where you can find my new harvest. Belushi's private vault. Check it out.
And reasons are clear. With 100 strains, Herbal Choices sells so much product that everything is always fresh. And there seems to be something new every time I see my Herbal Choices happy family. All our friends agree. The clear winner is Herbal Choices. The only choice.
Check it out. It's the only choice.
Do not operate a vehicle under the influence of marijuana. For use by people 21 and older, keep out of the reach of children.
Well, I was driving across town when my car got down, started lurching and trying to die. Well, luckily there was a shop, and when it struggled to a stop, a nice fella met me right outside. I said, "Man, something's wrong. What the heck is going on?" He said, "I tell you this, I got no doubt. You just relax and don't you worry. We can fix it in a hurry, because your car is what we're all about. We do it all."
Bayshore Auto and RV Repair, your one-stop shop for all your automotive and RV mechanical repairs. Stop by and see Jeff and his friendly staff on Bayshore Drive in Coos Bay.
And now, here's some food for thought from Jim Bice.
It seems that nowadays, lies are told and believed simply because some politician could see some obvious gain in propagating whatever fabrication is convenient at the moment. For example, the claim that the wall at our southern border is immoral. We've heard this from the likes of Nancy Pelosi, our own Jeff Merkley and Ron Wyden, as well as numerous other Democrats, including some right here in the Oregon legislature. Really? Immoral? How can that be? Unlike the Berlin Wall, it's not being built to keep anybody in. It's only meant to keep evil from entering our country and accosting our citizens. So let's talk about immorality, real immorality. Liberals don't seem to think it's immoral that over 2,000 Americans are killed and more than 15,000 are assaulted and or raped by illegal aliens each year. And these numbers don't even include property crimes and fraud. They don't seem to think that 350 opiate drug overdoses per day is immoral. Remember, about 90% of those drugs come illegally across our southern border. And the vast majority of liberal Democrats have refused to meet with or even acknowledge the victims and families of these crimes. Boy, that is a real example of immorality. I guess it's not immoral that the American taxpayers are stuck with the costs of legal representation, food, shelter, clothing, education, and medical care for people who illegally invaded our country. Although Democrats' compassion for illegals and murderers seems to know no bounds, the defenseless unborn are the ones that take it in the shorts in this situation. According to Democrats, there's no problem when a baby is aborted only seconds from birth. After all, it's the liberal Democrats who insist on giving taxpayer money, your money, to Planned Parenthood, a multi-million-dollar corporation that specializes in killing babies and selling the parts. No moral issue there at all. Then we have to ask if it's immoral for adult men to share restrooms and showers with young girls, as liberal Democrats have been advocating for the past couple of years. Of course, there's no moral issue at all when liberal snowflakes try to shut down Christian bakeries who decline to violate their religious beliefs, or advocating boycotts of businesses that don't conform to their perverted vision of the world. Let's also consider the morality of liberal Democrats in Salem who want to use a bill written by high school kids to effectively eliminate the constitutionally guaranteed rights of honest, law-abiding citizens to keep and bear arms. Morality and immorality originated and are predominantly defined by the world's religions. Once you eliminate the religious aspects of their varied tenets, what you're left with is a surprisingly similar list that could best be described as common sense. One of the primary tenets of virtually all religions and the basis of virtually all morality is treat other people the way you want to be treated. So the bottom line here is that the question of moral versus immoral is basically common sense and treating others as we wish to be treated. Maybe some of our politicians should take a lesson from this. Just some food for thought.
We're back in session. It's the Rob Taylor Report. And here he is, Rob Taylor.
All right, it was good to hear Jim's voice again, and a little bit of rational thought. Something that he said that I thought was very poignant is that, if we all lived by the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, then we could live in that world that Adam Kokesh is talking about, where we respect each other's right to be a citizen, to respect each other's right to have our own choices, where we respect each other's right to live and earn what you have and to keep it. And if we all just lived by that golden rule, that golden tenet, and by the way, almost every society, starting with the Sumerians, going all the way back up to America, and when our country was created, every country has had some form of that golden rule, do unto others. And it's something that was reiterated during the Sermon on the Mount. And I think those are things that are moral homilies that we have to stop and look at and realize that it's more than just a cheesy platitude. It's something that we should probably adhere to and live our life by so that we can enjoy what we have. And hopefully if we had a country where people saw things like that, we could live with a lot less government. I'd love to live with a lot less government. I could live with a lot less of what is coming out of the Oregon legislature. Right now, they are putting up a rent control bill. I don't know if you've heard about this. This is something that's a Democratic idea, and there's nothing the Republicans can do to stop it because they're in a minority. But the Democrats in the Oregon State Senate have passed out of committee a measure to cap rent increases statewide. Senate Bill 608, which now goes to the full Senate for consideration, would limit rent increases to 1 per year and cap the maximum rent increase to 7% above the yearly consumer price index. The Statesman Journal reports that it would also prohibit landlords from issuing no-cause evictions after a month-to-month tenant has lived in a rental longer than a year. What this is going to do is it's going to cause more people not to purchase investment properties and use them as rentals. I know this because my family is one who utilizes rentals as a way to subsidize their income and keep as an investment. But it's hard to do that when you're at such great liability that at any point in time you do anything wrong, the people who are living in your house as renters can sue you to the point where they now own the house that you used to own. I don't think renters need more protection. What we need are less rules and regulations for development. We need fewer development fees. Instead of creating opportunity zones, urban renewal zones, urban growth boundaries, and enterprise zones, what we need is to get rid of all of a good portion of these new rules and restrictions that they put on developing a house. I've talked to developers. They would love to build. Of course, they don't want to build in Oregon because, well, there are too many restrictions, and this rent control bill is one of those. That's Senate Bill 608. I hope you people are paying attention, because this is going to affect your livelihood. And if you think this is going to make rent cheaper, you're delusional, because putting more restrictions on it is actually going to cause rent to go up, because what's going to happen is that maximum 7% increase, well, what landlords will do, and I know I may be in that case, is I don't normally raise my rent or the rent on my renters unless I've had to pay more in expenses. Well, if I can't raise the rent to cover new expenses on my house at the time I need to do that, well, then what I'm going to do, and what most renters are going to do, they're just going to automatically increase the rent by 7% every year just to cover that cost. And then they may find other ways to get rid of the month-to-month tenant who now can be safe from a no-cause eviction, which is ridiculous. I think if someone gives you 30 days notice, I don't care if it's just for the reason that they don't like the smile on your face. One of the other things that they have done in Oregon, the Oregon legislature, is that 3 Oregon lawmakers, all Democrats, of course, introduced a bill to outlaw pet rent. I got news for you. There is no such thing as pet rent, but they say they titled it this just because it's, warm and fuzzy feeling. And they got to make you feel good when they're doing something because it makes them feel good. But House Bill 2683 prohibits landlords that allow pets from charging tenants additional rent or fees based on possession of pets. The bill would prohibit landlords that allow pets from charging tenants extra for them. 3 Oregon legislators, and that's Rob Noss, or Nose. I still haven't figured out how to pronounce his name, but he's a dirtbag Democrat, so it don't really matter. Karen Power, who's a Democrat from, and Tawana Sanchez, who's a Democrat, filed a bill that proposes to outlaw pet rent. Yeah, right. Representative Power says pet rent unfairly penalizes animal ownership. Well, I got news for you, Miss Sanchez. I got news for you. Well, actually, that was Representative Powers. Miss Powers, I had a tenant who allowed his 3 dogs that I allowed him to have in my house use one of my spare bedrooms as a toilet. Then when I had to kick this guy out and had to change my room, or had to change the floors in those rooms, there was nothing more exciting than having to pick up a soppy, soaking carpet full of dog urine and dog feces. And, of course, we had to replace the floor. We had to do repainting. We had to do recoating. I think there was even some drywall work that we had to do. Pets cause damage, and it should be up to the person who owns the house to decide whether they need to charge more for this or not, because those pets cause damage. I've got 2 dogs of my own, and they have also caused damage, and we'll have to pay for that, and rightfully so, when we move out. So I hope you're thinking about what's going on right now in the Oregon legislature. It's not only that they're trying to take away your guns, but they're trying to dictate how you will and how you will not use your property. Did you work all your life and sacrifice all your life that some dirtbag Democrat up in Salem could tell you how to live? I know that's what I didn't spend my time doing when I was toiling away. Just something to think about until next week. So until I catch you next week, you carry on, Coos County. Carry on.